Fertility medications are often a first stop for couples who are struggling to conceive. And while I appreciate that we have the option of conventional medication, I look for 4 different physical signs to tell whether you are ready to head down that path. Let's talk about it. Hey, I'm Whitney, fertility dietitian and coach, and I help busy women get out of the Google spiral and get pregnant. I've helped hundreds of women figure out their fertility so they can grow the family of their dreams. And in today's video, I'm going to talk about 4 taboo signs. Well, I'd say they're socially considered taboo signs. I talk about them all day, every day. 4 signs that I look for to tell whether your body is ready to head down that medication pathway. And as always, this video is meant for educational purposes only and not meant to be a replacement for medical advice. Before we get into the good stuff, I want to take a second and talk about the fertility journey. I personally don't love the word journey, but it really does, and it explains what it actually is. A lot of times what I see is that couples are ready to start their family and they stop their birth control, whether that be hormonal birth control or a barrier method or cycle tracking method if you're doing a natural family planning method, deciding that you're ready to start, and you try for maybe 5-6 months, and if it's not happening, that's when we typically see couples head to the doctor and be like, hey, is there something going on? And sometimes the doctors will tell you to wait a little bit longer. Other times, especially if you're a little bit older, over the age of 35, doctors will tell you, yeah, let's get started with some fertility medications. And I'm hesitant to start fertility medications right away without further testing. As I explained in my previous video, I do like to look a little bit more into it. And one of the biggest hesitations that I have is that fertility medications are hard on the body. They shift your hormonal production. They change your ovulation, sometimes in a good way, but it is hard on the body to process all of those extra medications, extra hormones, all of it. And so there are things that I look for before we get down into the medication pathway that we can iron out first that can improve your chances of success, whether you need medications or not. All right, the very first thing that I look for before we head down the medication pathway is consistent, strong ovulation. If you have landed here, I'm pretty sure that you know ovulation is required for conception, and it's not just any old ovulation that I'm looking for. I look for consistent, strong ovulation. So let's start with the first part of that. Consistent ovulation, meaning you're ovulating every cycle and it's typically happening around the same day. Now, there's going to be some variability month to month, whether that's like 3 days, I'd say a 3-day window. If you're seeing a 5-6 day shift, if you're seeing week-long shift, let's say you ovulate on day 21, one cycle, and then the following cycle you ovulate on day 10, and then the following cycle you don't ovulate until day 30. That is irregularity, and that is not what we're looking for, and it typically indicates some underlying hormone imbalance. The second thing with ovulation that I look for is the strength of your ovulation. I'm not just looking for any old egg. I want strong hormone production. So this means that you're ovulating with good egg quality that produces a high amount of progesterone that can sustain your luteal phase for at least 11 days. Your luteal phase is a length of time from when you ovulate until you bleed or you get a positive pregnancy test, and we need at least 11 days in order for the embryo to implant in the uterine lining. If you're having an 8-day luteal phase or a 7-day luteal phase, it's going to be very, very hard for the the embryo to reach the uterine lining in time before it is shed. And so for that, we need strong progesterone production, and to get strong progesterone production, we need really good egg quality and strong ovulation. So strong, consistent ovulation is something that I look for even before we start medications. Medications can amplify your ovulation. They can stimulate your ovulation too. But if you're not getting consistent ovulation on your own, there are underlying issues that could create a problem later on. They can still prevent you from getting pregnant even with the addition of medication, and they can create pregnancy complications once you do become pregnant. That's something that I look for before we head down that medication pathway, because if we need to identify PCOS, if we need to look at insulin resistance, autoimmune disease, if we need to look at thyroid issues, we can iron out so many of these issues before we start the medications to give you the best shot possible. Because my goal is not only just a healthy pregnancy, I want a healthy pregnancy. Do you know if you're ovulating regularly? Is your ovulation strong and consistent? Comment below and let's talk about it. And the second thing that I look for before we start heading down the fertility medication pathway is strong fertile mucus production prior to ovulation. I have an entire video going through all the ins and outs of why fertile mucus production is important. If you want to check out that deep dive, hit the link up here. But just a quick synopsis, fertile mucus production leading up to ovulation is a good indicator of your hormone health in your cycle, your monthly hormone health, but it's also really important for sperm in order to meet the egg. Fertile mucus production is something I talk about a lot in my practice. It is something that is not talked about a lot in conventional medicine settings. So if you haven't heard of this yet, don't be surprised. It's not all that common to have a lot of providers talk about it. One of the negative side effects that I have seen with fertility meds sometimes is reduced fertile mucus production. Now, as I just said, in order for sperm to meet the egg, fertile mucus is very, very helpful. And if a fertility medication dries up your mucus production, that can reduce your chances of success. This doesn't happen for everybody, but if you do notice that you start taking Clomid or Letrozole and you were seeing fertile mucus and now you aren't, definitely talk to your doctor. You may need to switch your medication around. The third thing that I look for before we start on meds is consistent pain-free periods. As I teach in my one-to-one and my one-to-one work and in my programs, your menstruation, it's really your body's monthly report card. I know a lot of us, we give our period a lot of shit, but it really does tell us a lot about what's going on internally. The length of your cycle, the length of your bleed, the color of your bleed, the heaviness of your flow, the pain you're experiencing, the lack of pain, the lightness in your flow. All of these things can explain so much about what's going on in your body. And so I'm not going to get into the entire thing. In fact, I could do a whole video on period health and possibly will, but just to keep it simple for this video, the things that I look for are cycle length between 24 and 32 days. So when I say cycle length, it means the first day of your period. So cycle day 1 is the first day of your period until the first day of your next bleed. And so I would like your period to be between 24 and 32 days in order to optimize chances for success with conception. If it's less than 24 days, we could be looking at a short luteal phase or super early ovulation. Those could be issues for conception. And if it's longer than 32 days, we could be dealing with a lengthened time to ovulation and some hormone imbalance that could also impact conception. So that speaks to the consistency that I'm looking for. Now let's talk about the pain. Pain in periods, it's a hot topic. I've seen so many experts give terrible advice when it comes to period pain. And for a lot of women, we've been told that period pain is totally normal and there's nothing we can do about it. And when I say pain, I'm not just talking like some light aching or some light cramping. I'm talking about extreme period pain where you're doubled over or it is affecting your daily activities. You're not able to get off the couch with your heating pad. It is impacting your life. That is a sign of something deeper going on. When we're seeing really excruciating pain or debilitating pain, it typically correlates with conditions such as endometriosis, adenomyosis, pelvic inflammatory disease, fibroids, and all of those disease processes can impact your chances of conception. And like I said, I like to iron out as many of these bumps before we go into the fertility medication space to optimize your chances of handling those medications physically, but also with those medications having success with conception to give you the best chance possible. And the last thing that I look for before we head into the fertility meds is a notable increase in your sex drive near ovulation. This is not only fun, but it's also a sign of healthy hormone production leading up to ovulation and specifically healthy estrogen production, luteinizing hormone production. All of these different hormones work in symphony with each other to make ovulation happen and to make healthy ovulation happen. So notable increase in sex drive near ovulation is not only a fun sign, but it is a healthy sign that your body is functioning the way we want it to. If you aren't seeing these signs, it does not mean all hope is lost. It just means there might be some imbalances we want to work out before we take on the additional stress of adding medications into your system. If you want more natural fertility tips, take a look at the links below and take the Find Your Fertile Path quiz for your own personalized quick start fertility plan so you can focus on the fun of baby making and not just the science. That's all we have for our video today. Thank you for being here. And if you are a fellow food and fertility nerd, hit subscribe and comment below, and I'll see you in the next one.